Hi, welcome to Stories Around the Fire. Tonight's guest is Ben Smith, who is the voice and guitarist, sorry, of the amazing rock band The Bratlo, and he also has punk and hardcore roots with the band Sweet Diesel. He's a prominent writer for sites such as Decider and Oxygen, and he's worked in the music industry for years alongside some of the best names in music. He has hosted and created shows for VH1 and MTV, and we're going to talk to him tonight. Let me add him. Hopefully this one works.
Are we live?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Are you hearing any noises that shouldn't be there?
Now it's perfect.
Okay, cool.
For some reason,
Okay.
my friend's Instagram video is playing underneath. I saw what it was.
Oh, yeah, I closed mine out a few times just to make sure it wasn't me, because I know sometimes that happens. Okay, so I'll just jump right in. You've been into music most of your life. Can you kind of describe the evolution from just listening to music and then playing and then being in like the punk hardcore band that you were in,
Right.
and then to the Bratlo?
I mean, I was just always surrounded by music, and I grew up in a household where like my dad wrote plays and my mom wrote books, and my brothers played when I was like a little kid. Like, I'm the youngest of four kids. So, and I'm the youngest by a lot. My oldest brother is 12 years older than me. So when I was like 3 and 4, my brothers were playing in bands in our basement, playing like Deep Purple songs and stuff like that. So I was always surrounded by that, you know, thing. And my dad would like direct. My dad wrote like real plays and stuff, and was involved with like musicals. He never had any big success, but he was always kind of in it and working with people in theater. And then he would like do children's musical plays at our church. So I was in those. So again, it's like this stuff was like, I think a lot of people talk about like getting into music or art as like a rebellion, but for me it was like the family business, and I was expected to kind of, my mom was like, you should learn how to play an instrument. And my brother's friends, my first guitar teacher was a guy, Chieli Minucci, who's got a band called Special Effects, who are a pretty well-known and established kind of like jazz fusion, light jazz band. And he had played in bands with my oldest brother, Dave. And so I started taking guitar lessons with him in 6th grade, and then sort of fell off for a few years. And then I got serious again when I was 15.
Yeah.
And like, when I was 15, like I'd grown up on all the classic rock stuff. And, funny enough, like when I started getting serious about playing guitar, I also started getting into punk rock. And New York has like, this legendary old school punk rock scene. And then when I was 15, it had the New York hardcore scene, which was huge. And, it was huge, but it was also really accessible, which I think is like kind of one of the things that, you would go see a rock band in a stadium or a big theater, and there were these middle-aged guys, and I was a teenager. And then you'd go see a hardcore band, and they were guys your age from, like close to my neighborhood. And it was this like local thing that was, again, it was really accessible. Like there wasn't 5 steps in between you becoming one of them. It was just like, oh, I play guitar, I'm in a band.
Right.
So that's why, like, when I started playing in bands, and that really like was an important thing to me, like the punk rock scene and the hardcore scene and independent music. And by the time I was in Sweet Diesel, I was like in college and doing all that, and we got signed sort of in that wake of the post Nirvana world. when it was very easy for any like rock band to get a recording contract from someone. Like at the very least, you got like a free meal out of it, and then it was pretty easy to get a record contract. And Sweet Diesel were just on independent labels, but we toured a lot. I mean, yeah, we toured a lot. And then that kind of ran its course, and it was, I was like, time for like something new. And I played in another band after that called the Kill Van Kull that was kind of more like kind of complex than Sweet Diesel, but also really like aggressive, kind of like, post-hardcore. Like, it wasn't like straight hardcore. It was very like progressive or whatever. And it was always too progressive, and like the songs were too complicated, and I wanted to play something simpler and more like from the heart. And kind of in that period, like I had started revisiting a lot of the records I grew up on, like a lot of the classic rock stuff. And I'd always been into like, through classic rock, I'd always been into blues and country. And, I mean, if you like, one of my favorite bands was always the Rolling Stones. And, the Rolling Stones do blues, they do country, they do hard rock, they do rock and roll. So I was going back to all those influences and wanted to do that. And, and also like another thing, like there were these things in punk rock, and maybe they were like self-imposed, but it was like you couldn't like play guitar solos the way I had grown up being taught how to play guitar solos. So I like wanted to do that. I wanted to play like, I spent all these years learning how to like do this, and that's what I wanted to do. And then like, I was really tired of like in Sweet Diesel and even Kill Van Kull, like it started to change a little bit in Kill Van Kull, but like I was always screaming. I'm like, I was really sick of screaming and sing and do all that kind of shit. So that's how like what I was doing morphed from the loud, aggressive punk rock thing to like loud blues rock.
Still loud.
Country. As long as it was loud, it was cool.
That's cool. So what was your first job?
My first job.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, my first job that I got paid for.
You didn't have to get paid. I'll take any one of them.
I'll go. My first job was really I was pretty late to the game. I was like the summer before I went away to college, I got a job in a hospital billing agency out on Long Island, and I had to wear a tie and sucked.
Oh, wow.
Like my ties were totally lame, and and I like had this ill-fitting tie, and like
your tie game was weak.
My tie game was really weak. My tie game is much better now, and I'm not joking, but yeah, and like the whole job was this is like, I shouldn't even say this because this shows you how old I am, but it's like, you have to understand, this is summer of 1988. There's no such thing as like personal computers. There's like not even like the most anachronistic computer you can imagine wasn't even the computer that anyone in almost 90% of all companies even had. And I had to like find like past due accounts with microfiche. So do you even know what that is?
I have heard it referenced.
The microfiche were like, I guess they would like take all the records and somehow take a photograph of them all and then shrink it down like 1,000 times.
Oh, yeah.
And then put miles of these hospital records on these sort of blue plastic sheets, the microfiche sheets. And you had this like giant fucking, I can curse on this, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so you had this like giant fucking like projector and you would have to like scroll through, and like to find like you'd have to go by date, so it was like you could either go
Mm.
down or sideways, and it was like every day, every minute, trying to find a needle in a haystack of like some past due bill that I would just then like write some, I don't know, you owe us money. I'd make
That's
a note,
super
and then
tedious.
some other person that was making $8 an hour would write them and be like, you owe St. John's Hospital in Huntington, Long Island,
Right.
$9,000.
Oh,
That was my first job.
yeah, it kind of takes the soul out of you, yeah.
It definitely wasn't awesome.
Yeah, it sounds super tedious and terrible, but I mean,
But it was like it was actually like $8 an hour in 1988. It was like, oh, it's all right money.
ooh,
I mean, it's better than minimum wage now.
yeah, no. I think I made like $5 an hour at my first job, and that
But,
wasn't, you know,
yeah.
yeah. So with the Brotlo, was there like a certain point or like a catalyst for you that you feel like really like brought you guys into the big time, or did you have like a moment where you were like,
Big time.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like, well, you've played with, I mean, you've been to some pretty, rad places and you played alongside like very
We,
awesome people. You guys
yeah,
are.
we've done great things. The funny thing is like, I did all the Sweet Diesel stuff when I was like mostly living at home,
Mhm.
and then I was still living with my folks, and then before the last Sweet Diesel record, we got signed, so I had a little money, and I moved out, and me and our drummer Nick got an apartment in Brooklyn, and then we actually had tour support on the last Sweet Diesel tour, which was hilarious because they were like, well, that was hilarious. First, they're like, we can't give you tour support, and then our guitarist Nat was like, well, then we can't go on tour.
Nice.
And so then they're like, okay, I guess we'll figure out how to give you tour support. And
Mhm.
so then they were like, we'll pay for hotels and we'll pay your gas, but that's it. And they paid our rent for the 2 months we were on tour.
That's nice.
But so we had this scam where we would go, we'd buy like, and again, this is like 1998. So gas was like $1 and change. And we'd always buy like $30 worth of gas, which at that time was like more gas than like anything besides like an RV would contain. And then we'd go get the change from that. We'd go back and be like, oh yeah, we overpaid on gas. Because we had to show them receipts. So every time he's like, if they were just like cared a little more, like they would have been like, how come every time you guys get gas, it's exactly $30?
Yeah.
Like really,
Well,
for 2 months, every time you filled up your van
you
for
had a down
exactly $30. That's amazing. But yeah, and then we'd get the change and spend it, which was usually about $10 to $15, and we'd spend it on beer.
Nice.
And then but I only say that they're like Sweet Diesel toured a lot, and then like Brought Low really we did one tour right after the first album came out. That was like a real 6-week, 5-week tour, national. And then we've done a couple 2-week tours, but like Brought Low hasn't really toured a lot. But what changed was the internet became the main conduit for promoting bands. So, the irony is that like Sweet Diesel toured a lot and actually like sold a fair amount of records for the time, and like really didn't have much to show for it. And like Brought Low certainly like toured less, and because the way the music industry changed with downloading and record sales, like we didn't sell as much, but we've made more money through like licensing songs to TV shows, and then we also, you know, with the internet, you didn't necessarily have to tour as much. So it's enabled us to be a functioning band, even though we're not like touring all the time. Now, you know, we've gotten kind of lazy in the past 8 years, and then there was like 3 years where we didn't really play. But I mean, before that, it was like really most of the Broadlow's time. I mean, we would do weekend dates, but it was like really through word of mouth via the internet, which was this new way to kind of connect to fans outside of New York City. Because in the Sweet Diesel days, if you didn't tour, no one would ever know who the fuck you were outside of like
Your little clique.
whatever city you were in. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. I know the person that I found out about you guys from, I think originally found you on stonerrock.com. Is that a thing? Yeah.
That was a big thing. That was a big thing for years. Yeah. Made a lot of good friends on that, and it really helped us, like really helped keep our name alive when we sort of stopped touring. Which was like, you know, what happened was like I had a kid.
Right.
You know, we at one point had we had some lineup changes with the bass. There was like a period where our bass situation was unstable before Bob joined, and we were supposed to go to Europe. We were supposed to go to Europe and tour with Raging Slab in like 2002 or 2003, but my kid was about to be born, and I was like, I ain't going on tour, man. I'm about to be a dad. Like,
right.
Sorry.
It's pretty far. I mean,
sorry. You know, not. I'm not that guy. I'm not gonna be like, oh, bye, see ya. Gotta go on tour. Sorry, honey.
Right. Yeah. Wow. That sounds like a lot of stuff that happened in that little
you don't even know the half of it. Yeah. There's fun, you know. But that's life, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff happens.
Definitely. So have you ever gotten like starstruck by someone?
Starstruck. I can say
fangirled.
Well, I mean, I can say actually 2 times I was starstruck, but both times was like you know, members of Led Zeppelin, because when we opened for them, Crooked Vultures, it was like, you know, John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin was the bassist, and that was pretty weird to be like in the hallway after the show, and I remember like Bob, our bassist, went up and shook his hand, and I remember, and I've also like never, I don't know, like I never like had to meet my heroes, like like I mean, because I was always like, what? It's not like we're gonna become like what's gonna happen? We're not gonna become fucking best friends.
Right.
They're not gonna be like calling me, be like, hey Ben, what's up today? You know. So it's like I never had that need to like meet them. But I remember when we played that show, Bob like went up and was talking to John Paul Jones, and I remember thinking like, if I don't go shake his hand, I'm gonna regret it. So I did that, but yeah, that was pretty starstrucky, and I'm a huge Led Zeppelin fan. And then actually, one time for VH1, I covered a Jimmy Page press conference.
Ooh.
And that was pretty, he's Jimmy Page, he's a rock star, you know. It was pretty. I asked a question, like it was a question and answer thing, which was pretty cool. But I was starstruck by him, and he's also got like, you know, he's kind of magical. He's got like he's got like crazy magic vibes.
He's got the mojo.
He's got the mojo, yeah.
That's awesome. I think I definitely would have. I don't know. I try my best not to fangirl, but I do it. So what was your favorite show or venue that you have played?
Well, you know, I mean, it's funny because my friend Zach Lopez, who's a musician and a writer, And he's also like, I'm on Twitter. Like I promote a lot of my articles on Twitter, and that's like I'm like the worst. I have like the most pathetic Twitter following ever. And the only person, like, there's like three people that respond to my tweets, and one of them is my friend Zach. And but he said something on there the other day. He had like posted a photo of him playing CBGBs, and someone was like, "Oh, I never got to play there," and he was like, "Oh, it was no big deal." And I was like, "Yeah, it was no big deal, except it was the best place to ever play." Yeah, CBGBs was always the best place to play. It had the best because it had the best sound, and it was always easy to get people to go there because it was CBGBs.
Right, right.
And then it was fucking CBGBs, and you were like, and also like, you know, coming from New York and being like part of that New York hardcore scene, I had like grown up there, you know. I had like they used to have like the hardcore matinees every Sunday, and then when I was a little older, you know, when that kind of died out, like we would go every Friday and Saturday and see like, you know, the like, you know, alternative bands like the Nirvanas and Jesus Lizard. And so yeah, man, that's always my favorite place in New York. And the old Emos in Austin was a great place to play.
Oh yeah.
Um, and yeah, I'd say those are my two. Those are the only ones I can say like I played a bunch of times, and it was always a good time.
Nice. So, I gather that you're a gear connoisseur. Do you have specific gear that you like to have always, like something that you always use, or like a guitar or something that you?
Well, you know, I always use my Les Paul pretty much. Um, and that's really like like yeah, the Les Paul I played all through Brought Low. That's like
The
that's
one.
my that's the one, yeah. Bury me
Yeah,
with that one.
yeah,
And
awesome.
I mean I've been using the same amp since Sweet Diesel, since like midway through Sweet Diesel, all through Brought Low. And then I got that Les Paul right when like Brought Low started, and that became my main guitar. It was really like my first really good guitar. And
Mhm.
yeah, no, it's essential. I love it. I played it. I brought it to a session the other night. I mean, it's like, you know, it's the one. It's
Right.
I don't know, and I also always liked like most of my favorite guitarists like were, you know, it's like you mate with a guitar, like Keith Richards or Jimmy Page. Like that's the one. That's like this is the one that you have
Right.
to, you know, conquer the uncivilized, you know, world. And but I have a lot of cool, you know, I have a lot of stuff. I have a lot of like I have a bunch of pedals that like have a lot of sentimental value to me because
Mhm.
again, like I accumulate stuff that's got stories to it, and
Right.
like see that thing that I'm pointing at right there, that painting. That's a painting of like a ship. It's an ugly fucking painting, but it was in my dad's office. So I have like
Right.
stuff like that, you know, like the like two of the pedals I have were my older brother's.
Oh
I,
yeah.
I have an amp that was my other brother's. You know, the first pedal I ever bought was like a Rat pedal. It's like a distortion pedal, and I bought that with one of my brothers. So it's like a lot of times, like gear has stories to it,
Hmm.
and same with like records. I have a lot of records, and it's like a lot of them I can be like, oh yeah, I remember when I bought this record. I was with, you know, my friend Pete George and the fucking Village, and you know, blah, blah, you know, again, it's like I, I I have a lot of stuff, but a lot of it has stories behind it. You know, they've got souls.
So are you saying you're a hoarder?
No, I'm not that bad. I'm not
I'm
that
kidding.
like my saving grace is like there's so many people that are so much worse than me. There's so many people. Like I don't like the other thing that the thing that saved me for years and years is that I'm pretty fucking cheap. So it's like I never bought a lot of guitars, but
Hmm.
like the ones I had, I mean, now I've got a bunch, but like I got a couple for free, and they actually suck. But
Oh,
you know, but it's like hard. Like, what am I gonna do? You can't give away a guitar. Like,
It was free.
it's free. When we were in Sweet Diesel, we toured with this band Seaweed, and they had these amps, like these PV amps, and I said, I asked the guitarist, I was like, how's that guitar amp? Like, is that good? And he was like, you know how it is? It was free. He was like, it sounds free. I got it
Right.
for free. And it's like, I've always like thought that was like, you get
Accurate.
anything for free. Like, it doesn't get any better than that. I got it for free. Get out of here.
Nice.
I see my friend Eric Eister has joined. And I
Hi.
said, is this what people do in these things? They like comment? Hey,
Yes,
shout out.
they join and
Shout
talk.
out to Shame Club.
Yeah, you shout them out. Yeah.
Right,
And they can comment, they can ask questions. So you guys
no one's
can
asking any questions.
watching. Okay, so what is something that you listen to that might surprise your fans?
Well, I mean, I think anyone who kind of knows me, like, there's not much that would surprise them. And like, I've always, this is also true of the other guys in the band. Like, we all listen to tons of different shit. I guess like one thing that I like argued with like people my age, like a few years back, I was listening to a lot of new hip hop and pop music because I'd be in the car with my daughter.
Right. Yeah.
She was like a teenager and she would put on stuff and I'd be like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I heard a lot of stuff like, like this is like, these songs are already like 4 years old because then she actually started getting like into really good music. But but I think this stuff is good. But like there was a moment like, like whatever, like the Justin Bieber, who's that guy? Skrillex.
Yeah.
They had some single. I thought that was a good single, man. And like there was a lot of weird, like there was a lot of pop music like 3 years ago, and it was really fucking weird. And I thought that was really cool. I like some Drake. I like Drizzy Drake. I like The Weeknd. I like those big Weeknd hits.
Weekend is great.
It was great, but his follow-up was kind of meh. But
I don't know.
the one with the record that everyone listened to, the I Can't Touch My Face, that's a good song.
Oh yeah, no. That wasn't as good as that heavy. I mean heavy, I say heavy. The other thing.
I don't know. I liked it. Rihanna, what's that song? Was that song? Work?
Work.
Love that song. Work. Not down with that? Come on. Some good shit. But with the new, actually, like my friends would be like, they would just probably not even respond to that. But like, I remember there was some like, some of that like new like trap music, hip hop. Because I grew up in like, first of all, like I grew up in New York City. I remember when there was no rap, and then I remember when there was rap, and then like in the '80s, I was down. I was into all that, and I mean I'm into a lot of '80s hip hop, and which I don't think is, again, if you know that I'm from New York, it's like that was like everywhere. But my friends who were like my age, when I tried to be like, oh yeah, I like some of that new, I like some Bobby Shmurda, I like some like like they'd be like, what do you fucking know? That shit's whack. Like, oh, it's the worst. And like Kanye West, he's got some good tracks. He's an idiot. He's an idiot, but he's got some good tracks. But my friends, a lot of guys my age are like, he's the worst. How can I can't even listen to it? That's the worst shit. I'm like, you just sound like the people when we were kids. And that's the thing, like when we were kids and like listening to hip hop, like people would be like, how could you listen to that? Fucking garbage. Like, you just sound like those guys now.
Right.
So, does that answer your question?
Yes. So, what are you doing now musically, like right now, right this second?
Well, right, it's a little fucked up right now.
Yeah.
I mean, Broadlow didn't play for like 3 years, and I was sort of kind of working on some other things, and they didn't pan out. And then our friend's bar was closing, and he was like, "Oh, guys should really play before we close, Hank's Saloon." And we did it. It was great and sold out. And then we were like, "Hey, this is really fun and easy." And it's like even when we didn't play for 3 years, like we were still like friends. Like,
Right.
I mean, we didn't. We just kind of. I kind of just stopped booking shows. Um, but it was like I was still hanging out with Bob, our bassist, every week. Like we'd still like go out to like bars, and I was still like jamming with Nick, our drummer. So we didn't really do anything for 3 years, and then we started playing out again, and then we were like, we've been talking like, let's write some new stuff, let's do another record. And, we were trying to like work up new material and whatnot, and then this thing happened. So now it's like, and in New York City, it's like we have a practice space in Brooklyn. I live in Queens. Nick, our drummer, lives in another totally different part of Queens, and Bob, our bassist, lives in Brooklyn. But it's like our practice space is in Brooklyn, and our practice space was, basically like closed. Like they weren't letting people come in. So, I don't know what's going on. I have lots of songs written, I was talking about maybe just recording them, and I don't know. I have a bunch of different like things that I'd like to do, and hopefully I'll do them. But I can't say right now, like, oh yeah, we're going to have a new Broadlow record next year. Like, cause what's next year? What's time? What do we even know? What's going on?
What is space?
What is time and space? So I have no plan. I have lots of plans and no plans.
I feel that.
I think it's like, come on, it's what the shape of our existence is now. And again, it's like, life sort of gets in the way, and like, it's like can't go to Europe when you're a newborn dad, and you can't like plan the next tour when there's absolutely no live shows being booked, and the entire music industry is perhaps collapsing. As well as society and
right.
I don't know.
Civilization,
hard to say.
All right. What is the most useless talent that you have?
I think all my talents are extremely useful.
Oh. You don't have any
useless. I mean, like, besides knowing arcane fucking rock and record collecting trivia. That's pretty, I mean, I would argue, part of me would argue that's really useless.
I don't know, it might not be.
You never know.
I have a game for you later that you might can use some of that knowledge on.
All right.
Okay, so what would you do if you weren't a musician or writer?
That's such a depressing question. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know. I still wonder that. I wonder what else could I be besides a musician and writer? I don't know.
Nothing.
Janitor? No, probably not. I'd probably be a really shitty janitor. I'd be like, let people's, like radiators wouldn't get fixed, and I'd be like, sorry, I forgot. I don't know.
A car salesman.
Maybe I don't know. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a priest.
Well, there we have it. So how do you continue to connect with fans, from back in the day? You said you have a Twitter, you have Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's like it's social, again, it's that same thing I was talking about with like the band and like keeping the band going even though you're not touring. It's like social media. So I mean, and it's funny because I have my personal Instagram, which had been private.
Mm.
But once I started like posting music stuff, I was like, I mean, I guess just, I mean, my own ego wanted to share it there. And then when Broadlow started playing shows again, I was like, oh, I should do an Instagram and a Twitter. And I worked at websites, so it's like that social media shit, like setting things up. I know how to do all that part of it.
Right.
And it's like we have a Facebook page, we have an Instagram page, we have a Twitter page. So between that's like 3 ways for people to
Right.
interact with me. And it's like I'm happy for that anyone still gives a shit what we do. I mean,
Right.
again, it's like the last new music we put out was 2011. Like we play shows and we're still kind of alive, but it's anytime. I mean, the fact that anyone cares what we do is a blessing. And so if someone, it's funny because I will say, like, the Twitter, we have like no response, I don't think. Instagram page is like pretty good, and people like will tag us and do posts of the records and things, and that's great. And the Facebook band page app is really clunky, and it's really easy to miss messages. So like if anyone like, I mean, and I don't think so, but like I don't think I've missed any messages. But if anyone's ever like, well, like I never wrote me back, like it's just because like the Facebook page is really like you don't really get notified if you have a new message. It's really hard to like keep that stuff really like current and so. But I mean, one thing is, so when you ask, actually, I mean, I do the only plans I have musically right now is like at some point in the near future I'm gonna get the first album up on Bandcamp, because that's not on Bandcamp anywhere, and it's not in print anywhere. So we're gonna get that up on Bandcamp, and then we also did this digital EP in 2011 for Co-Extinction Records, and it's 3 songs. And I mean, 2 of the songs we still play live.
Oh, cool.
So I'm going to get that up on Bandcamp and Apple Music, and been thinking about doing maybe some really limited run cassette pressings for some of the records.
That's cool.
I'd like to do it. The idea was always to do it around live shows so we could actually sell them, because we always like sell merch at shows. But so those are things. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I'd like to do given the time. We always recorded a demo for every album, like just to like get the songs down before we go record them. And they're cool, and they're like like every record has a demo basically. So I thought it would be fun to like remix those and put them up again on Bandcamp or something, and
That'd be awesome.
like that. Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah. Live shows. I just found someone just sent me a live show from 2002.
Oh,
and, yeah, it's up on the Facebook page. There's a link to it. I think it's I can't remember off it. I think it's it's a SoundCloud link.
Oh, okay.
So that's up on SoundCloud, and I posted on the Broadlow Facebook page. So there's cool stuff like that, like good soundboard recordings and things.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, this is my last interview question.
So sure.
If you could collaborate with anyone, who would it be?
Oh, man.
Is that a terrible question?
I could collab. I don't know. It's like I feel such pressure. I
Oh
feel like I
no.
have to think of someone really cool to say,
No.
or like to collaborate. I don't know. I always thought it'd be cool to write like a really great song for Roger Daltrey because I love the Who, but
Right.
like Roger Daltrey's solo stuff is always kind of like, but you could. How
It's
come? How come no one like under a raging moon? I don't know. That's kind of, you know. So that'd be cool. Like, yeah. How's that, Roger Daltrey?
all right.
I'd like to write a kick-ass rock and roll song for Roger Daltrey.
Well, that sounds good. If you ever
Hey,
make that.
John Epperly. That's what the kids do in the shout out. John Epperly, who just joined, he's a good friend of mine, and I just played on a couple songs of his
Hi, thank you for joining.
over the weekend. Yeah, I mean that, and that's the. I mean, again, I feel like I'm like trying to compensate for saying like I don't know what I'm doing next musically. I mean, I've done a lot of like kind of. I mean, not a ton, not enough to. I mean, I haven't made any money doing it, but I played on a bunch of other people's stuff.
Mhm.
I played on a single for a singer named Allegra, um, and that's up on Apple Music, and that's a very different like vibe from what I do with Broadlow, and it's cool. It's like, and it's really
Yeah.
fun to play on that. And my friend Little Chippy is a MC and a songwriter, and I did a couple tracks with him last year, and they're very like they're like hip hop rock
Oh, neat.
and like hip hop country, and then I just did a couple played some guitar on some of the stuff that John Epperly's doing with his band Ill Angel.
Sweet.
My friend Rich Meyer from Hopewell did a solo album last year, and I play guitar on a bunch of that. So, it's like I just look for. I mean, I have my own songs I'd like to get recorded,
Mhm.
and then, but I always love like playing with other people, and it's like the. I mean, the one thing I learned long ago is like the music is the reward. Like I mean, I, I think I said this in some other interview I did, but it's like you're basically like it's like once you get to a certain age, if you're not like paying the bills playing music, you're never going to be paying the bills playing music. So, but again, that doesn't mean you stop playing music. Like
Right.
why, and that's sort of like what I learned from my parents. Like my dad always worked on plays. He wasn't a fucking Broadway playwright making he wasn't Neil Simon, he worked at like magazine companies, but he kept doing that thing, and he had some success, he wasn't just like pissing into the wind, but and again, it's like my mom was a novelist. She was also a Sunday school teacher, and the music thing was like, and and I think that's also a thing about like our society is like, oh, you're not getting rich doing it. Oh, well, then it's a fucking waste of your time. It's like, yeah, well, no one's getting rich playing music for the past 2,000 fucking years until like
Mhm.
1965. Like until like Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby, like musicians didn't make money, so it's like fuck you. Like music is this thing that we have to make ourselves feel alive and to talk to each other through different cultures and to express what we feel and what the culture is feeling and
Mhm.
time. And it's like music is not about like and art, even all art is not about like the monetary reward, you know.
Right.
And I think there's also like a thing, like a lot of my favorite musicians are guys that were like kind of obscure bands that didn't really, ever make it big or a thing like that. I mean, for every Led Zeppelin that I love a band like the Laughing Hyenas, who just like were a club band and struggled. So um, I don't know. That's where I'm going with that. But yeah, again, it's like playing guitar on stuff is something I enjoy, even if it's not my own project.
Right. Well, sounds like you did a lot of things. Um,
Thank you.
You did all of the things. Okay, so at the end of every show, I ask for a story, and then we'll play a game.
I thought there
So
was so we're doing the story and then the game.
yeah,
So I was thinking when you told me before, and I was thinking like, what kind of story? So I can tell the ghost story,
yes.
which was, and I'll qualify this as like, I don't know, I mean, if anyone hears a story and they're like, well, it's you're just fucking making like that, not like that wasn't a ghost. Like maybe you're right. Maybe it wasn't a ghost, but it was as close as to what I have as a ghost story. When we were doing the first Brought Low album, it was Memorial Day 2001, and we recorded it in New Jersey at this guy Alan Duchess's house. It was like he had bought this house. It was a big 3-story home, at least 80 to 100 years old, and it had been a dentist's house previously, and the dentist, like there was a side porch um, that had been the dentist's office, and then Alan Duchess turned it into a recording studio and mostly a mastering studio. That Alan mastered lots of really big records in the 1990s and early 2000s, and he did all the Misfits reissues, and I mean he did a ton of shit. But he was also a musician and had built like a couple live rooms, and he was really excited that we were going to record there because, again, mostly it had been like mastering shit. So anyhow, he was good friends with our original bassist, Dean Rispler, who plays on the first Brought Low album. So we were going to go out there for the weekend, and we were going to track all weekend and get like the basic tracks. And as we're driving out there, as we're like leaving Brooklyn, Dean's just like driving. He's like, oh yeah, by the way, Alan's house is haunted, and yeah, a lot of weird shit goes on there. And me and Nick are like, what the fuck do you mean it's haunted? Like, oh yeah, it's haunted. Yeah, it's his wife's good friends with that guy John Edward from Crossing Over, the TV show, and he went out there and he said it's this woman who died in the house in the 1920s at a party, and this house used to have a lot of parties, and she's you know, that's the ghost, and like she broke a door one time, and a lot of weird shits happened. So you know, it's too late. We're like already going, and also we're like, what are we gonna do? Like, be like, no, I'm not recording in a haunted house. Like, you know, not children. So we got out there to Jersey, and you know, the first day, you know, recording an album is intensely boring, and probably the most boring part of it all is the first day, because you're like getting, you know, what we call like getting sounds. So you set up the drums, and mostly getting sounds is all about the drums. So mostly it's about just sitting around all fucking day and watching the drummer be like do 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 do, while the engineer like moves mics around and like EQs like the mics, and it's like so fucking insanely boring. And you know, like many things of being a professional musician. And oh hey Mark, got bugs. So fucking we go through that day, and I think we had cut a couple songs. Like I think we had gotten basics for a couple songs, and then we went to sleep. And we were sleeping up on the 3rd floor. Alan and his wife lived on the 2nd floor, and like the 3rd floor had like the 3rd floor was like it wasn't like it was a big ass house. Like I grew up in a big house, and it was bigger than the house I grew up in, and we all had like our own bedroom. And it was fucking weird. And it was like I woke up in the middle of the night, and it felt like someone was in the room. Now, you can say like, was it just power of suggestion? You know, like, because he told me it was, you know, so maybe I was just imagining it, but it fucking was weird. And it felt like it felt like something was in the room with me, and I couldn't get back to sleep, and it wasn't that fun, and so the next day we're cutting more basics, and I was trying. I think we like finished the basics that day, so we got like the 8 songs down, and then our drummer Nick left, and then we did guitar tracks that night and the next day. Well, early the next morning, and there were 2 different ways you could get into the studio from the main house. There was one stairwell that I think left right from where the studio was, and then there was another one where you went through the living room. And we had just been using the one up and down. So the next morning, before we started like finishing up the guitars, it was just me and Dean and the engineer, Jesse Cannon. So the living room, I feel like I'm already going off the rails telling this story. It's taking too long. But so the living room, when you went through the living room into the studio, there was a big fireplace and a big mirror above the fireplace. And in front of the mirror was like a bunch of like tapes and cassettes and, just like crap, like a bunch of shit. But like, so, it'd be like a stack of like DAT tapes. And next morning I'm on the phone with my girlfriend and Dean's like, hey, I need you to come see something right now. And he like made me get off the phone. I was kind of pissed. I was like, what the fuck, dude? And we go into the living room and the mirror is on the ground, face up, smashed. Like smashed right, like it like looked like if you just put it down and hit it with a sledgehammer.
No.
But then we're thinking like, oh, well, and our fear was like, oh, when we were cutting the guitar tracks, like with the guitars too loud, did it vibrate and make did we make the mirror vibrate forward and fall off the mantle? And then we looked at the mantle and all the shit that was there was still there. So like the mirror would have had to either topple forward from the, like it would either have to go like top forward and somehow jumped over all this shit, or and then if it went like that, it would land on the face down. Like, it was fucked up. And when we told Alan about it, he was just like, fucking ghosts. So that's my close to a ghost story.
That's super creepy.
It was creepy. Oh, and then that night, the second night, I was like, I'm not sleeping in that fucking room. And me and Dean slept in the recording studio. But in the recording studio, there was a fireplace. And then like in the middle of the night, the fireplace, like, and this is like Memorial Day, there's no fucking fires. Like it was warm, In the middle of the night, all of a sudden you could like smell the fire. Like it smelled like there was a fire burning. It was fucking weird. I was like, I'm not coming back to this place.
Yeah, no.
So that's my story around the fire.
Well, I hated it. No, I'm just kidding. It does sound super spooky, and it is nearing bedtime. But no, that's interesting. I don't know. I always try to think of a science reason why things happen, and then I just ignore it if I can't. Okay, so this game is called Wrong Answers Only.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a song title, but I'll be using Wrong Answers Only, and it's up to you to decide or decode the incorrect title. Sorry. You have 10 seconds for each song, but I'm not counting, so...
I don't understand this game.
Okay, yeah. So an example would be if I said, when pigeons sob, you would say, when doves cry.
Okay, I see.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And if you need a hint, tell me, and I'll give you, the band name. See if that helps. Yeah. Okay. Escalator to Valhalla.
Stairway to Heaven.
See, I thought you were gonna do this, and initially I only made 10, and then I was like, no, he's gonna smoke through here. I need to make more. Okay. Um, don't be scared. It's only the Death Harvester.
Don't fear the Reaper.
I long to be tranquilized.
I want to be sedated.
The young males have returned to the village.
The boys are back in town.
Happiness to the earth.
Happiness to the earth.
Hmm.
Joy to the world.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Small ballerina.
Tiny dancer.
Traveling fellow.
Troweling.
Traveling.
Traveling. Rambling man.
Wow, I really didn't think you were gonna get that one. Okay. A pony with no identity.
A horse with no name.
Murderous matriarch.
Killer mama. Killer queen.
Yes. Um,
Not sure.
not what is it?
Not sure. Well, I
You
guess
did good.
queen is a matriarch. Yes, I guess you're right. Okay. What's
Look,
next?
look, I had to do this myself, okay? Don't judge. All right, not speaking about affection.
Ain't talking about love.
Wow. All right, reeks of adolescent essence.
Smells like Teen Spirit.
Jogging on nothing.
Running on empty.
Oh, thought I had you. Uh, entire bunch of affection.
Whole lot of love.
Oh my God, how are you doing this? Okay.
You
Shall I?
understand? Like, I'm also like a writer, so like my vocabulary is pretty on point. So everything I'm like, what's another word for large amount? Whole lot. You know?
Well, I see. Shall I remain or shall I leave?
Should I stay or should I go?
Long to have you present.
Long to have. Oh, wish you were here.
God. Okay. Will not be bamboozled once more.
We'll get fooled again.
Birthed to jog.
Birthed. Whoa, born to run.
Emperors of swaying.
Sultans of swing.
How? Oh my gosh. Okay. Rye inside the bottle.
Rye.
Yes.
Oh, whiskey in a jar.
Okay. Beneath the overpass.
Under the bridge.
Oh my God. In excess of an emotion.
Too much.
Nope.
More than a feeling?
Oh my
More than a
God.
feeling.
No. How do you do this? Okay, letter in a jug.
Oh, mess in a bottle.
You know what? I'm done. I'm done here. I thought for sure I could stump you. You nailed all of them like a lightning round. Oh my goodness. That's awesome, though. You did a great job.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for playing that. So
Sure.
before Instagram cuts us off, thank you so much for being here. Can you tell people how to find your stuff, the Bratlo stuff? Where can we find you?
Again, we're if you do like the Broad Low and Facebook, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, and you know, we're still on Small Stone Records. So if we put out any new music, it'll probably be with Small Stone Records, and so you could look there. They also have Facebook, Instagram feeds, and yeah, that's about it. I would say, yeah. I think the Facebook and Instagram are the two best ways to follow what we're doing, and especially the Instagram, because if we ever play a show again, if there's ever shows again, we put all our flyers up there.
Okay, awesome. And that's at the Bratlo.
That sounds correct. Yeah, at the Bratlo on Instagram, and then I think we're the Bratlo on Facebook as well. And you can just like Google the Bratlo Facebook. the Broadlow
Awesome.
Instagram.
All right, 15 seconds. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
I will link your Instagram, well, the Broughtlows Instagram on here. Thanks so much. Y'all have a good night. Thank y'all for watching. Thank y'all for joining.
Awesome. Thank you.